One of the biggest things that I think a lot of people overlook is suppressing their audiences.
Welcome to Honest Ecommerce, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running a direct-to-consumer brand does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. On this podcast, we interview founders and experts who are putting in the work and creating real results. I also share my own insights from running our top Shopify consultancy, Electric Eye. We cut the fluff in favor of facts to help you grow your e-commerce business. Let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. Today I've got a fun one. Nikita and I already got way too off the rails before we pressed record, so we had to pause and get right into it. So today I'm welcoming to the show an amazing subject matter expert. He is the CEO and founder of ASPEKT. They're an agency that specializes in e-commerce and direct-to-consumer email and SMS marketing. Nikita Vakhrushev, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chase. I hope to not go on too many tangents here, but we'll see. I'll try to stay on track.
Well, that's why we have an editor. He'll make everything work for us. Awesome, Nikita. Well, first, before we dive into kind of what you guys are up to at the agency, just talk to me about your background in e-commerce. How'd you end up here? What was your interesting path?
I feel like whenever someone starts in e-commerce, it's either in one of two ways. They're either going from traditional marketing to digital marketing, and they're trying out Facebook ads at this big ad agency, or they start spending money on their own ads and start their own e-commerce brand. I'm in the latter part. So I started off in print on demand and having my own t-shirt store. Eventually that scaled up to like a 10K a month business. And I had people reach out to me asking me like, hey, how did you do this? How'd you set up ads? How'd you set up email? How'd you set up your Facebook pages? And eventually I started helping out more and more people that I knew and started to reach out to other people in Facebook groups and eventually started providing agency services and realized that was more scalable and profitable than e-commerce. So made my way into growing that agency model, and things started to take off in 2020. And then since then we've been growing, and we grew to a point where in 2022, we switched from just doing everything to just doing email. So we used to do Facebook ads, Google ads, TikTok, UGC, you name it. And now we're just subject matter experts on the email and SMS side.
It's so funny how when you get any sort of success, before you know it, people are asking you to help them do the thing that you're doing. And I don't know if you did this or not, but I know I found myself just giving away free advice and just like helping anyone. Then I realized like I should probably start charging for some of this stuff. Did that happen to you? A
lot of it was like, yeah, it's so simple. You just do this and this. And they're like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. I'm looking at matrix code when they're trying to remove like powered by Shopify. And I'm like, this is so simple. Just give me like $100 and I'll do it for you. And then I'll get like a Zelle notification and I'll do it for them.
Yeah, that's exactly the mindset I had. I was like, this is so simple. How can you be doing this? And like, when we started our agency, it was a lot of like, how are you paying that much for that? And how do they have you in such a bad contract?
Yep.
And it's as you get older, you start to realize it's not necessarily in age, but in business and in how people perceive value. You'll realize that like there is a giant delta between wanting to learn something and needing it done.
Yeah, 100%. It's almost like that same, I think it just goes for any service industry, whether it's blue collar or white collar. You know, you always, depending on the quality of work, you got to shit talk the last person that was handling the account or, you know, redid your deck. So in the same position here, it's like, how were they on with this agency for that long and they were not getting this many, this quality of results or this quality of like email designs, and they still stayed on with them for like 2 years and they were paying them double the price that we were paying or we were charging. So totally get where you're coming from there.
Absolutely interested. Okay, so you hit me up a while back and there's like a really timely thing that we're going to talk about. So if you're in e-commerce, you either work for a store or you have access to a store and they use any sort of email marketing platform, so like a Klaviyo or a MailChimp or a SendLane, or there's a bunch of other ones out there, but that probably hits 90% of the audience. You've got an email about these deliverability changes that were coming, kind of pushed by Google and Yahoo. We're going to dive into that today, Nikita. So I guess What were those changes? What were they trying to alert you to?
Yeah, pretty much if you have an email account and you don't live under a rock, you'd be bombarded by two main things. Number one, you had to set up a DKIM verification for your email domain and a DMARC record. Both of those sound like alien language if you're just running an ecom brand and you're not in, email marketing. But to put it simply, those are just extra verification measures. So that way Google and Yahoo can, I guess, differentiate between phishing scams or any potential scams versus a legitimate email address. And this also hit not only e-commerce, but also like cold email agencies got hit by this significantly, because I'm sure you get a bunch of cold emails, as I do, of people reaching out, promising the world and under delivering. So I'm sure there's a lot of that going on a much more massive scale. So it's just reducing clutter and reducing unverified email accounts being able to reach out to you. And a part of that was updating those two records. And if you didn't have those two records updated, most likely your open rates and your click-through rates and your revenue on the email side are dwindling. So those are the two main things that Google and Yahoo, I guess, tried to push for. And now I think as of April 15th, it's live. So you better have those two records updated.
I know that we're still getting emails to this day that are like, hey, update your records here. Because we got access to, I don't know, a lot of Klaviyo accounts at this point. And just so we're always getting updates about that. And so we've done it quite a few times. I did it myself using some of the other platforms that we use as an agency. And like we kind of said before, it's not that hard. Why aren't you guys doing it? But there is a pretty steep learning curve. And this I would never put in a DIY category because you're getting into some interesting stuff within your domain settings. And I know 99% of founders out there aren't technical founders in our world, and they wouldn't be comfortable with kind of what you need to do on the back end there. But I still think maybe we should just kind of walk people through it, and I'll try to ask you to dumb things down if it's getting too technical, and you do the same to me.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that it's not a DIY type. It's not a DIY type solution, because even though I've created like a YouTube video going over the exact step-by-step process, we had one of our clients actually mess up the installation process, leaving like an extra space in between one of the records. And we saw the screenshots, everything was done correctly, or it looked like it was done correctly. And a week later, our open rates went from like 50% to like 12%. And we had to spend an extra month trying to get them back on track to their normal deliverability. Yeah,
I think one thing it's worth pointing out is just having access to their email platform. So I'm going to use Klaviyo for the example for the rest of this thing. So if you have access to a client's Klaviyo, doesn't matter. You can't do it within Klaviyo. You actually need access to their registrar. Which is where your domain name kind of like hangs out. So electriceye.io is our domain name, and our registrar is Namecheap, right? But there are hundreds of registrars out there probably.
Yeah, for the most part, a lot of them stick under the category of Namecheap, GoDaddy, SiteGround, Google Domains, unfortunately, and then Shopify domains. So all of those, like I'd say like that's 99%. I don't think I've dealt with anything outside of those.
Oh, we have. we always get the weird edge case, and we're like, where's the documentation on where to find what I'm looking for? Because so you got to get access to the registrar. Yep. That's step one.
Yep. Get access to their DNS settings, or find a DNS zone editor. If you're trying to figure out what the DNS zone editor is, it's just a bunch of records line by line, almost like an Excel spreadsheet of, host and value, and then a TTL, so a time to live. So once you're in that area, you're then going to go ahead and navigate back to Klaviyo. You're going to go to settings, email, and then branded sending domain. Once you're in branded sending domain, that is where you install your dedicated sending domain. And that dedicated sending domain takes care of that DKIM verification for you. So once you have that set up, you're basically good on the DKIM part. Now, to install it, there's two ways. There's dynamic and then there's static. Now, I had to learn this the hard way of brute forcing it. But basically, if you can use if you need to use a CNAME record to update your value, which I believe is in Shopify domain settings, you have to use a static domain. There's two options. There's static and dynamic. So if you need a CNAME, you use static. If you don't need CNAME, then you use the dynamic, which again, for GoDaddy, Namecheap, SiteGround, all of those for the most part require dynamic. It's only Shopify that needs the static. Once you upload that, upload the text record for verification, verify it. If everything looks good, you activate it, and you're pretty much good on the dedicated sending domain side.
For the more popular registrars, it's pretty straightforward, and you can probably find a YouTube video out there to walk you through your exact email platform and registrar and how to do this stuff. But for the more obscure registrars, or when you get into any sort of situation that has like advanced DNS controls for localization, or there's countless other reasons that I can't think of because I'm talking, but there are reasons why your DNS might be goofy, and then it's just an edge case where it's like, this is going to be different and we've got to work through it, and there's going to be a bunch of learning before we get this right.
Yeah, exactly. So again, until I had to set up one on Shopify domains, I didn't know that, because I always clicked on dynamic because of course it makes sense. You want it to be dynamic so you don't have to keep updating it, that you have to use static for Shopify domains. So it's just one of those things where you have to kind of test through. If you're not comfortable going through with it or going through like a tutorial, you'd have to reach out to one of your agency partners, or you can reach out to me and we can talk about it. But when it comes to the second part, which is updating your DMARC record, this is significantly easier, and this covers pretty much anything that requires DMARC for email sending. So, for example, Shopify domains, or like not Shopify domains, sending out emails through your Shopify branded email for like purchases or shipping updates, etc. You need a DMARC setup for that. You need DMARC setup for your Yotpo or for your Gorgeous support tickets. And then you need DMARC setup for your Klaviyo. The thing is, once you do this once, you don't have to worry about doing it for the other platforms. And setting it up is pretty straightforward. You just create a new record in your DNS zone editor, create a text record, make sure that your host is _DMARC, DMARC. And then the value is V = DMARC1 in all caps, and 1 is a number, semicolon, P = none, semicolon. I would double, triple verify this by Googling it and making sure that's set up correctly, because I'm sure it's not going to come through the same way on the audio side. But that is how you set up DMARC. And then once you set that up, you can go to DMARCian, DMARCIAN.com, and they have a tool that you can verify to make sure that your DMARC is set up correctly.
Oh, that's great. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes. I know that there are listeners out there that don't know if they've set this up, or if their team set this up, or it's like, my assistant Chase manages this stuff. I'm sure he's on top of it. But what happens if I didn't do it, right? So if I didn't make these changes, right, and we said that it might have happened about 15 days ago as the time that we're recording this, are my emails not sending? Are they ending up somewhere different, like spam or like the promotions tab? Like, what's actually happening now?
Yeah, so your emails are likely going to be ending up in spam, mainly because Google, when you send out an email, Google sees the authentication behind that email on the coding side. You may not see it when you're setting up your email in Klaviyo, because that's just a glorified email design tool. But on the back end, when you send out that email, let's say for your email Chase, you're using chase101@gmail.com. That Gmail account will read the authentication behind that email through the code, and it'll see that it's missing an extra layer of that authentication, whether it's that DMARC or that DKIM record. And it'll say that, okay, these things are mismatching. Your email is going straight to spam. In order for it to get out of spam, and for future emails to get out of spam, you need to set up that verification. Otherwise, any future correspondence is just going to go to spam, and then your open rates and your click-through rates are going to go down.
Absolutely. And in the same vein of deliverability, and maybe I should kind of wrap up what we were talking about here with this these adding in DMARC and DKIM. do it. It's like not an option.
Yeah.
So you definitely, if you haven't done it, do it. Double check that it's done. But that's just going to get you back to kind of where you were before. But if we're going to double down on deliverability during this conversation, what are some other strategies that our listeners should keep in mind or to consider to improve their deliverability?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I think a lot of people overlook is suppressing their audiences. And I think let's use Klaviyo for this example. If you go to your recent email campaign that you sent out, and there's usually a drop down when you scroll past the initial like send time or whatever, it says, that you had like 50,000 people segmented, and then maybe out of all of the exclusion suppressions, you had maybe like 45,000 actual delivered, part of that campaign. So one thing that we try to do is we try to remove that like extra 5,000 people that got suppressed or maybe bounced or maybe led to spam immediately before we send out that email. And that has significantly improved some of our clients' deliverability because we're already preemptively removing potential bad apples from that pool, leading to better deliverability through the inbox. So for example, let's say we had sent out an email to 100 people, 10 of those people, 5 of them maybe bounced previously because their inbox is full. And then 5 of those maybe led to spam. So we'd want to exclude those 10 people and only send out to 90 because then Google, Yahoo, Verizon Media Group, Apple, Outlook all see that, okay, these people are actually delivering directly into the inbox and people are opening up those emails, leading to, I guess, like a domino effect of more and more deliveries into the inbox. I don't know if that's too woo-woo or too complicated to explain.
No. I'm going to dumb it down for you, though, because I know exactly what you're talking about. So the people that own the inboxes, not Chase, not me, but like Gmail or Yahoo or the conglomerates actually behind these email inboxes can see when someone is sending out a email, newsletter, and they'll have multiple people that are getting that same newsletter. And if they see a pattern of like, okay, like, these are all coming out and like 100 emails are coming in to, Yahoo, and it starts to see that more and more of them are going to spam, it'll just automatically send the rest of them to spam. Whereas if you get rid of the ones that are going to go to spam, then it won't like automatically send any more to spam.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. And getting rid of those people that bounce is like the easiest thing you can do. And it's already a predetermined filter in Klaviyo or a predetermined segment that you can set up easily. One other one is people that haven't engaged in the last 180 days and up. You'd be surprised at how many people just linger in that list and they're not opening up your emails. They're not going to keep opening up your emails, but you're still sending to them. So that's ruining your domain reputation just a little bit. So those are the 2 main segments that we look out for. Yeah. And then like never bought and never engaged as well.
With the people that haven't interacted with your emails in like 180 days or whatnot, obviously want to suppress those people, but also just from like going back to talking about the people that have all these inboxes set up for end customers, they can see the last time someone's logged into that email. And if after a certain time, it kind of becomes a honeypot to where if you're sending emails to a dead email account, you're going to get, it's more likely you're going to hit the promotions tab or spam, versus if you clean that out and you're not sending emails to dead inboxes, to inboxes where they're not being opened. You want, basically, your goal is to get in as many inboxes and be opened as possible every time.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So just excluding those people from future sends is like the best thing that you can do, aside from making sure that all your sending records are set up correctly.
Obviously, you can use like in Klaviyo, there's a suppression kind of thing, and in a lot of email softwares, there's like ways to do this exact same thing. But there's also like list cleaning. Like, is it that straightforward? Is that convoluted? Like, how does one approach kind of list cleaning to make sure that they don't have some of these weird email addresses still in their list?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, I don't want to do too much self-promo here, but there is a YouTube video that I put up that goes over all the segments that you can use for suppression for deliverability purposes. I would recommend just going through that, setting up all of those segments and checking in on them every quarter and making sure that you're clearing those people out, adding them to your suppressed list in Klaviyo or whatever you're using, and then eventually deleting them from your email list to reduce your Klaviyo bill as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to link to all that stuff in the show notes. Before I kind of wrap things up, I do want to talk a bit more about just kind of what you guys are up to at the agency over there. Now, are you guys platform agnostic? Like at our agency, it's like Shopify or bust, like get out of here, Magento. But what are the technologies and tools that you guys like to work with and are usually a good fit for your clientele?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our bread and butter is Shopify and Klaviyo, but that's pretty much every email agency. But right now, I'd say we're splitting our focus between Klaviyo and SendLane. The biggest thing right now is getting our team trained up on SendLane best practices, going through the SendLane Academy, because we do see a huge uptick and a huge popularity increase on SendLane growing as an email tool and brands utilizing it. So that's one big one. But also we've handled clients on Magento, WooCommerce. I think those are the main two outside of Shopify, and BigCommerce as well. And then on the email tool side, outside of Klaviyo and SendLane, we're also utilizing OmniSend and MailChimp.
Awesome. So you are pretty agnostic when it comes to the platforms, but very niche down when it comes to the service, email and SMS. What's like, pretend I'm a merchant out there and I'm like, I've been meaning to kind of outsource my email stuff. It's taken up too much of my time as a founder. What size or like what other factors should I be like recognizing within my own business to where it might be the right time to reach out to an agency such as yours?
I would say there's a few things. The first one is just your open rates. If you have sub 20% open rates, that's a serious problem. And that to me signifies like, okay, there's a deliverability issue because 99% of our clients are above 45% open rates on average. So it's most likely just something in that system is working incorrectly. After that, I would say your email revenue is the second biggest thing that's the main thing that we look at is the email revenue. We typically look for 25 to 35% of total revenue coming in from email. So for example, if you're making 100K a month, 25 to 35K of that should be coming in from email. And then after that is just, if you have nothing set up, if you just have like the basic Klaviyo welcome flow and abandoned cart flow set up, most likely that's impacting your revenue and that just needs to get updated.
Awesome. Now, if I'm listening and I'm like, shit, that's me. Where should I go? What should I do?
Well, first thing we'd want to do is just an audit. And typically we charge anywhere between like $500 to $1,000 for an audit. But obviously, since Chase is a good friend, I'd want to, hook you guys up. So if you go to our website, we have a free audit tab there. If you click on it and you write down that you came from Chase's podcast, we'll give that audit to you for free. And it'll go over everything that needs to be worked on. And it'll set us up in a good spot on what needs to be worked on initially.
Awesome, Nikita. And what's the website again?
It's aspectagency.com, ASPEKT agency.com.
Awesome. So we'll make sure to link to all that stuff in the show notes. Nikita, thank you so much for coming on and, just explaining to us, non-email experts, what the heck Google and Yahoo and all these people have been yelling about for kind of the first quarter of 2024. Any parting words to leave with our audience?
Honestly, just make sure those records, if you're going to take anything away, just make sure those email records are set up correctly and to keep an eye out for your open rate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikita.
Appreciate it, Chase.
We can't thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their knowledge and journey with us. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our own businesses. You can find all the links in the show notes. You can subscribe to the newsletter at honestecommerce.co to get each episode delivered right into your inbox. If you're enjoying this content, consider leaving a review on iTunes. That really helps us out. Lastly, if you're a store owner looking for an amazing partner to help you get your Shopify store to the next level, reach out to Electric Eye at electriceye.io/connect. Until next time.